Доброе утро, друзья и коллеги. And I'll encourage you to have this stuff because all sessions will be in English. So I know you speak English very well, much better than me, but still, don't be shy, take this, okay? Well, we are going to have such amazing panelists, and as you see, we have six speakers. So I need one more facilitator. So let me introduce you, Maria Majic. She is country manager in Croatia, and Maria, you would be a timekeeper. So we really want to have a time for your questions, guys. So please, speakers, so 10 minutes maximum, okay? So please, Maria, take your role. And I'd like to introduce you guys amazing social entrepreneur from Croatia. She has been in our incubator for 2 years. And so Jelena Rabic from Croatia.
With my presentation.
You're first, because you're only social entrepreneur in this panel, and so we decided it's better to start with you.
Okay, so I can use this, right? Yeah. So good morning or good day to everyone. My name is Jelena, and I'm a founder of Family Tales. I imagine this presentation in two parts. At first, I will tell you a bit of my company and my project, and the other part is my story as a social entrepreneur, which I think is quite interesting because I started my journey in Croatia in 2014 when I moved to UK, and then I spent 4 years there, and now I'm trying to find my way back to Croatia. So I will mention some challenges and maybe opportunities that I'm facing at the moment. So Family Tales is a social enterprise. What we do, we are turning children's life experiences into fairy tales. The final product is a book. These stories are not just nice family stories, they are powerful, therapeutic, and they can really be life-changing, especially when written for the most vulnerable children in this world. How we function is, how we make money is in two ways. We connect parents and caregivers with fairy tale writers, and they create stories based on their life experiences. Most of the times we are speaking about love stories, parents' love stories, or family stories. And the second part is where we created workshops, offline and online, where we teach parents to create fairy tales for their children. While these products and services generate our revenues, they also fund stories for vulnerable children. We write for orphans at the moment. I personally wrote stories for more than 200 children, and altogether we wrote about 500 stories so far. The interesting part about how we write these stories is that every child at risk and every child in need has their own writer, and we find these writers between some of the loneliest people in the UK. In this case, I'm speaking about elderly people and seniors. So they are facing, especially in London, they're facing quite amount of loneliness, and so we designed workshops for them where they spend time together. There are mindful workshops and some mindful practices, and the purpose of the course is to write one fairy tale for one child. We give them the story about the child, and we help them to create a nice intervention into their childhood. It's not that we are just playing with children's lives. We work with some of the most amazing child therapy experts from different countries and different areas. So if you want to find out more how to get involved and more about the company and the project, you can find me later, or you can ask me questions. But what I thought it would be best for this panel here is for me to share my story, not my story as an individual, because it would be a long one and we don't have that much time, but my story as a social entrepreneur. In some points you may feel bitterness, and that's okay. I think it's a normal part of every entrepreneur's journey, but please don't see it like that. See it as a positive criticism, because there are not many occasions like this when we can discuss practical problems that social entrepreneurs are facing. So I will try to be as much as concrete as I want. I will speak about three things that I found most challenging, not only in Western Balkans, especially in Croatia, but also in UK. First one is the support of the government. The second one is about funding, especially venture capital, impact venture capital and equity funding. And the third one is the understanding of who social entrepreneurs really are, because sometimes people get confused. So in 2014, I started my company in Croatia. In 6 months, I had quite amazing revenues. I was one person, one-man show, and I had about 50,000 euros just writing the stories to parents. And it was quite promising for a small country and for a small market. But the concept of social entrepreneurship in Croatia wasn't familiar at that time. And I had this strong ambition to make it mission-driven from the beginning, because the first money that we earned, I spent on writing fairy tales for children who were spending Christmas in oncology department in hospital in Croatia. And the response was amazing. It was really great how the children reacted on it, but it turned out that all of our money went to that, and I basically realized, okay, it won't work like this because I won't survive. And then I started to research the concept of social entrepreneurship, and I realized that there were few countries at that time that understood the concept, and the UK was one of them. That year was the year when they wrote a big national strategy in social entrepreneurship, and they give to the people and experts some money to play. 1 year financial injection was 11 million British pounds, only for accelerators and educators. And there were also tens of millions of more for a few impact venture funds. So they were in the beginning, and I must say they were making a lot of mistakes, and they still are, and because all of us do, because we are still learning about how social entrepreneurship should work. So I got a small investment, and during that acceleration program, I didn't learn much about social entrepreneurship and about impact, and it all ended up in a way that from 12 teams, only 3 got a second round of investment, but in a condition that we keep our mission for ourselves for a while now and focus just on a business. And then when the time comes, we can do the mission part again. And I was really disappointed in that part, because that's not what I came. And then it was I was offered around 200,000 pounds investment at that point, and it was one of my bravest decisions at that time to say no to that and just to find another way to make it work. There will be time when I will tell you the story about how I made it work, but it was quite hard. So yeah, and then. Okay, and then I'm in UK for 3 years now. I can pay myself a salary. I have staff of 2 people, and we have around 300 fairy tale writers on our platform, and we are growing slowly but organically, self-funded so far. So I just want to say it's possible. But okay, now I'll get a little bit more concrete. In one point, I started to work with few institutions in children's mental health, and they got some money and they got some funding, and they wanted to fund stories for children in Croatia. Why in Croatia? Because I'm Croatian and I write in Croatian, and since I developed all the whole methodology, they wanted me to make it easy for me to write more stories for more children, and so we can all learn more from it. And then they got the money, and then I came to Croatia, and then I needed to, I tried to contact the government body for the social care. And I just needed a strategy, a document, a strategy about fostering care in Croatia. It took me 4 months to get like information that that there is no strategy. And I was, of course, disappointed and bitter. And they decided to spend money somewhere else, probably in Slovenia. But for me, it was really like, okay, how will I ever come back here? So I think that the government still don't understand the concept of social entrepreneurship, the potential of social entrepreneurship. And I'm not only talking about the legalization and the legal part of the concept, I'm talking about social entrepreneurs are tackling some of the biggest social issues, and they need to be followed by the government, and they need to understand that we need strategies and we need plans to tackle that problems. The second part is the part of, okay, I won't have time now to speak about the venture capital part, but I feel like people. I often heard that there is not enough, but not enough opportunities for equity investments in this area. I would say it's that we keep forgetting how venture capital works, and venture capital works in a way that you need to have something that you will be willing to sell in one point, that you need to have some intellectual property for them to invest and to take the equity, or you need to have big revenues or impressive revenues. And it's really hard for me in Croatia to have big revenues if I have a small market, which is, I think that if we are making a strategy about social entrepreneurship in this area, we need to do it together, not Croatia only, not Bulgaria only, not Serbia only, together. And the last part is the part that I really think people should understand better. Social entrepreneurs are entrepreneurs, and entrepreneurs needs and requires a special skill, special ambition. They need to hustle. They need to be ready, to be hungry, to find new solutions, how to stop being hungry. And that's how the innovation is born. It's not born in a comfort zone when you get funds, when you get grants to deliver your services and your work. In my case, when I didn't get the support when I needed, and I really thought it's the end, I always found something better. And this company, every part of this company is made out of struggle, like all these workshops. I started to do workshops because I couldn't sell stories, because I didn't have certificates to tell people, okay, they are therapeutic. So I had to self-fund that part to get to these certificates, and it was really hard. I did several part-time jobs to do it while I was doing it, but yeah, and I feel like I keep ending up in the room full of NGOs, and I don't want to offend anyone. I think everyone is delivering good in their own way, but as a social entrepreneurs, I think that I should be ending up in a room full of entrepreneurs, in a room full of people whose ambition is more than just to deliver, whose ambition is to innovate, whose ambition is also to survive. So, yeah, that's for now.
Thank you very much, Yelena. And I'm going to ask audience, do you have immediate question to Yelena? Okay, go ahead. But you asked me to involve audience, so I'm following your regulation, Yuri.
Thank you. Thank you, Jelena, for this amazing presentation. We are also working in the field of books, children, literature, and stories. But my question goes to the beginning of your presentation. Maybe I didn't get it right. You said that you rejected a 200,000 investment. Could you elaborate a little bit more on that? Why you did?
Yeah. So the concept was there was a social impact venture fund, and it's a concept that it's going to change because they realized you can't just give money to people who are doing good and not making revenues. I know when you work with innovation, it can take years for you to be profitable, years. And to make it short, so I was speaking with them and they said okay, we will invest in you because we see the potential and we see that in some point you can turn this into amazing social or enterprise or a mission-driven business. But for now, can you just focus on selling books to parents who can afford it? And I was like, I could do that. And maybe my decision wasn't right because maybe it really turns out in the end that you need to grow a business and then you need to put the mission on. That's how it works for so far, everywhere. But I had these stories in my mind. I wrote stories for so many children who were vulnerable, who needed these stories. And I think it is my belief that there is so much products and services for privileged children, for the children that have parents who can buy them tons of books, not only books like this. And I didn't want to be part of that. I wanted to bring a change, and to bring a change, you need to find your way. And this wasn't a way. I just felt that taking that money would be irresponsible because I felt that in the beginning I would have problem with that, and that I would force the mission all the way, and that we will split up sooner or later. So that's why that decision.
Thank you once again, Yelena. Do we have more questions to Yelena? Okay.
Hi, I don't actually have a question, I have a comment, and I want to thank you because I feel empowered right now, because just...
Oh, wow.
Well, I'm going to just share a very brief story. I myself have never in my life had sense of smell. My boyfriend is colorblind. We've all been challenged in different ways, and unrelated to that, I have... my life's mission is to help people utilize the power of food beyond the plate. And what I did is that I wrote a children's book illustrated with drawings with food that tells the story of two kids struggling with all disabilities.
So you told your story.
I told my story. And I just figured that kids can feel empowered by stories like that. And they can also be educated, through the back door without feeling patronized, without feeling condemned and judged. And people like you, I'm shaking right now because I'm just so inspired. Thank you for being bold. And thank you for saying no when it didn't feel logical and when it didn't make sense. It does now.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for your comment. It was a great comment. Okay, and now we are turning for infrastructure organization, European Bank of Development and of Reconstruction and Development. And I give a floor to Larisa Manastirli. She's a director in Bulgaria.
Hello, everybody. As a person and listener to the previous panel and also to Elena, I really feel thrilled and enthusiastic about people who have courage, ideas, but also this social impact focus. However, I have to bring probably the pragmatic note to all of that, because I do represent an international financial institutions. The support to social entrepreneurs and enterprises is not our mainstream business. We do other type of investments, technical assistance and policy dialogue. But within our mandate, within the impact development or impact finance agenda which we pursue, we have 6 qualities which we are trying to find in any project we finance, and one of those qualities is inclusion. And inclusion primarily driven by economic inclusion, but it's also about creating equal opportunities to get access to employment, skills, education, finance, infrastructure, IT networks, and so on. And within this focus, the bank has been trying to see whether we can adopt our existing products and services to also tackle and support the social entrepreneurship, but also showcase the positive inclusion as a good practices for the corporate clients, which we have around 37 countries of operation. I mean, today I would like to give you a little bit of information about a study which we have commissioned and done last year, which looked at mapping of social and enterprises around Western Balkans and Croatia. It was performed by an international NGO, which is called NEST. And it's an NGO which is very active in this field around entire globe, but in particular in Western Balkans. This study on itself, I think, deserves a whole panel, maybe even a conference, but I will try to summarize the main findings of the study. And it's a public document. For those who are interested, they can go and they can Google for that, and they can find this study and go through there are particular, I mean, there are summary information, but there are also chapters devoted and dedicated each and every country which was part of that study. And I think that study really very much echoes what Elena said in terms of identifying those real problems she faced when setting up and developing her own business. It also gives a very good summary of the good examples, like, for example, United Kingdom, which still has a lot of problems with social entrepreneurships, but according to the latest data, every 1 in 20 workers in employment in UK comes from the social entrepreneurship sector. About 3% of GDP in UK are coming from this sector, and it's about 60 billion pounds of annual production. It's more than the entire agricultural sector in UK. UK has its traditions and certain very strong governmental support to this area. And I think if you go to that example, you can learn a lot, but it's not only about entrepreneurs, it's a lot about other different stakeholders who have to play a role in supporting that sector that can learn from the UK experience. But going back to the Western Balkans and Croatia, the study has found out there are a lot of common challenges and problems in these countries. Croatia exhibits a much more dynamic social entrepreneurship sector with about 18,000 companies active. It's quite a vibrant sector, despite all the challenges and deficiencies which have been named by Elena because she's working in Croatia. But compared to Western Balkans, it's more advanced in terms of the stage and the way the government or the stakeholders deal with this sector. At the same time, the study looked at three key core components. First of all, it's ecosystem, which exists in those countries. The second is the financing and non-financing needs of the companies. And the third one is the sources of this financing and non-financing support which are available in those countries. So in terms of the main challenges, I would summarize them to you so that although it's not an exhaustive list, and I would like to tackle only the key ones, because I think identification of them allows really to think about proper recommendations and the ways to tackle those challenges. So in terms of ecosystem, on the legal level, there is lack of a systemic approach and some government national strategies. The only strategy exists in Croatia, but still in terms of implementation, it has a lot of deficiencies. In other countries, the notion and this sector is really dealt through the different social policies, like, for example, dealing with disabilities or dealing with socially vulnerable communities or groups in the communities in those countries. Also, the government tends to focus much more on regulatory things rather than creating and empowering these enterprises and creating flexibility. They try to come up with very fixed and determined legal forms of social entrepreneurs, try to introduce too much of regulation, which really doesn't serve the purpose but disincentivize the companies. Also, because of those restrictions, they have the restrictions further when thinking about accessing to finance under different existing programs in those countries. It's also that many stakeholders, including the governments, do not really understand what is the social entrepreneurships. And this, I think, also it requires a lot of awareness raising, education among the stakeholders. And I mean, this requires concerted effort by different players on the market, from mass media, government, international institutions, donors, the entrepreneurs themselves, the customers, the public institutions, to really raise awareness and really showcase the positive impact that empowerment and development of that sector can have. There is no really focus on opening public procurement to social entrepreneurs, and that would be also a very strong stimulus to support those companies, because when we go to financing side, and this is where I'm a banker by my background, so when we look at the enterprises and when we go to financial side of our discussions, we really want to see a company which can scale up, which can, demonstrate that this is a sustainable company. So when we talk about financing, I think if you talk about a donor or a financial investor, we want to see a sustainable story. We don't want to have a one-off project and just to give money so that it's, in a year time, it either disappears or it just has no money to continue. So now if we go to capacity, or this what we call non-financial type of support, there were a few comments made by previous panel about actually closing the gap between the philanthropic goals of this type of entrepreneurs and the professional investors they meet. But it's also, what I've already mentioned, is about demonstrating that what you are creating is a sustainable business. And yes, at different stages, it might require different type of finance, because these companies also go through the life cycle. So from blueprint to validation, then to ready to scale, and then the company which can scale. But at different stages of this development, these companies would need different type of support, I mean, in terms of financial and non-financial, and this has to be taken into account. So, for example, if at the blueprint stage, when they only come up with idea, so you have an entrepreneur with great idea, with great empathy, understanding really this crucial social aspect they would like to tackle, most probably you really need to invest your own money and to find some other like-minded philanthropic donors who are able to put this money together with you, because at this point of time it's really very early to say whether this will be a sustainable idea. When you go to validation and you sort of validate this with the market and you see whether you have a market demand, whether you have enough consumers of what you are producing, it's another stage, and you could go to a more maybe risk-sharing type of facilities where you still have some soft but returnable money type of financing, but with some guarantees and some donor support. But then when you move further through this life cycle, I mean, you are becoming more attractive to those investors who still maybe not purely commercial, because in our world we have a lot of investors who look for impact investment, and they can be providing soft financing, but this is the time when you have to prove that you are not a one-off attempt, but you have a business that would be sustainable. But at the next stages, when you scale up, it's more easy to attract more commercial type of investors, both as equity and debt providers. But this is a journey, and this requires also a lot of technical skills in terms of strategy, in terms of putting a business on the right footing, marketing, working with your consumers. So these skills, also I think what was mentioned by my predecessors, understanding of the government programs, of available funding structures, of what the partners will be looking. This also requires skills. And there are consultants and expertise on the market which is available and could be shared with this type of companies. And then financial support, I already mentioned that it could be different type of financial programs. In this region which we looked at, we've seen that majority is still funded by donors and by EU. Croatia has actually benefited a lot from accession to EU. The European Social Fund has been funding a lot of programs in Croatia in this sector. And EU is also very active in the Western Balkans, so I think it's a good source of funding. But we also see commercial banks like UniCredit and Erste Bank, which are looking into this area, and I think we will hear an experience from that. But one important observation is there is almost no cross-border cooperation whatsoever. It was mentioned by a question, it was one of the questions which also provoked the discussion on that. I think it's a very valid point. Even within Western Balkans, we're not talking about Scandinavia, which may be very different, doesn't know what is Bulgaria, doesn't know what is Macedonia, but I think within Western Balkans, these countries really know each other, but there is no cooperation whatsoever. And I think the institutions like Erste, like UniCredit, like European Union are trying to actually promote this. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Larissa. Let's ask the audience. Do you have questions, guys? Yuri, I see your hand, but probably someone else, not you. Okay, please, Yuri.
Just a provocation for our colleagues from Western Balkans. It was every time I'm going to a conference in Serbia or Macedonia, I always said, please don't forget that Bulgaria is also on Balkans. Because you've made, it was very strange how Bulgaria disappeared geographically for Balkans. We've been part of the Balkans, then we've been part of the Southeastern Europe, then now it's, and since we enter in the EU, we magically disappear geographically of this region. And for example, there is European Fund for Balkans. That's great, we want to apply. No, you are not in the Balkans. No, we are in the Balkans. So, but that's the funny part. And the specific part is there is, for donors' money and for cooperation, there is a wall between our neighbors in Serbia, in Macedonia, in Bosnia, and in other countries, because there is a lot of cooperation in ex-Yugoslavia, but then Bulgaria is, no, we are not partners. Why? There are so many opportunities, there are so many things we can do together, but donors, it's just don't recognize this, and and of course, when maybe we have to start from bottom up. That's my comment. Don't forget that Bulgaria is part of the Balkans too.
Bravo, Yuri Volkovsky. And we have a question in the audience. Please provide the microphone.
Hello. The social entrepreneur since 10 years. I've been trying to do my social business, and I've met the same challenges as you. After what you told, I came to the idea that we really need awareness, because it's now 10 years later when I find a bank that's saying that they do something for social entrepreneurs. People don't know what is this. And now next to the need for awareness and to the question how can we work together, I think we should start from the beginning. We know that there is no awareness. We have the media, we have the common will, and I think we can organize a Balkan or East European or both campaign for raising social awareness about social entrepreneurship, giving examples of businesses from around the region. Thank you.
Thank you for your brilliant suggestion. Some comments. I saw that panelists in my table had a comments during Larissa's presentation. Do you want to share it immediately, or you will wait for yours? Do you want to?
We wait for the comment from the next speaker.
Okay. Yeah, so we are waiting for your comments, Mark, because we all saw your face. So probably, yeah. And so let me introduce Mark Gregovic. He is a founder of Brodata, Croatia.
Yeah, I should keep my face a bit more poker, but I'll get to that later. So I started Brodot 3 years ago, and where is this? Sure. So I started Brodot 3 years ago, and at the beginning we were supposed to become a marketing agency for non-profits. But then we figured out that non-profits cannot pay us, so that business model failed. Our motto is making good visible, but with time it became also making good sustainable and making good connected. But still we have this one logo. We today operate in Croatia and Serbia, and this is not a picture that you see very often. That's why it's here. So yeah, and our plan is also to spread all over Balkans. It's funny actually, Croatians want to go out of Balkans and Bulgarians want to go in Balkans, so maybe we can make a switch. Because we felt that there are, I mean, after the fall of Yugoslavia, there's still, first we speak the same language, second we have similar problems, thirdly the atmosphere is similar, so there is really no sense of having, you know, one great project in Serbia and not transfer it to Croatia and vice versa. What we did at the beginning and how we became famous actually all over the region is that we started solving people's problem of getting money. Social enterprises usually have extreme problems with getting money. Non-profits have increasing problems with getting money for their projects. So we started doing crowdfunding. We started teaching people how to do crowdfunding. We started supporting them and mentoring them. And this is, for example, one story for Serbia. These grandmothers are baking cookies and they are opening their bakery, and they collected $6,000 and something to start it through crowdfunding on Indiegogo. In Vinkovci, in East Croatia, these guys started a bar, or are starting just now a bar where people with Down syndrome work, and they collected $16,000 for that. We have more high-tech stuff, so this robot that you can make in your own home, which teaches kids how to do STEM fields. They collected $36,000. They went to Las Vegas. They got more investors, and they are now selling all over the world, including hopefully in Bulgaria. And finally, this microbit is one of the biggest campaigns in history of Croatia. They collected $290,000 to have these small computers in every school in Croatia, and with this to teach children how to program, how to do stuff. Because as you probably know, in Bulgaria, in Serbia, in Croatia, education system is, you know, 19th century, so kids don't learn this stuff. So there is where social entrepreneurship comes in, and that's where we have to kind of correct the state. Our second field of work is with visibility. And I have to say, Brodoto is not really focused. You know, everybody says you have to focus if you're an entrepreneur. We cannot focus because there are so many issues and problems that every second day we discover a new problem that we will tackle. So one of them is visibility, and that's why we create conferences, we create events where we connect non-profit people, social entrepreneurship, investors, like classical corporations, and we make them collaborate. we brought last year on IMPA conference, we brought together IKEA and a non-profit which deals with refugees. So now they're creating their program. So this is, I think, where partnerships should happen. We also started this program Invisible Zagreb, where we have homeless people creating tours around Zagreb and showing tourists the other side of well, nice, pretty Zagreb, where homeless people live, and how they survive, and what are their issues, and stuff like that. So we are making them visible and their stories visible. We are providing them with the funding, and it's a closed circle. And finally, we create strategies increasingly, because people usually come, okay, we need money or we need visibility, but then we often ask them, so what's your strategy? And then they say, well, I don't know, in 2 years we'll become great. No, well, that's a goal, that's not a strategy. So we started creating strategies for people and companies and organizations. So this is the latest one. We just created it 2 days ago, over weekend. Super Seniors, it's a foundation that deals with elderly people in Zagreb, and they want to become bigger. How do they become bigger? By using people that they're helping already, elderly people, and by turning them into heroes, into people who can actually teach kids math or teach kids something else. In return, kids will give elderly people instructions how to use cell phones or how to do something else. This will be on the calendar for 2019. And finally, Image of War Museum. In Croatia, we have 25 years after war with Serbia. We still talk about war, and it's a big issue, and every time something political wants to happen, there's always this war. So we created a strategy for the museum, and we also have ownership in the museum, where we said, okay, war belongs in a museum. We should not talk about war anymore. Like, if you want to talk about the war, just put, your stories in the museum, go there, visit it, and let's get over with it. And it's very successful. After 3 months of operation, now it's second museum in Zagreb according to TripAdvisor, and eighth thing to do in Zagreb according to TripAdvisor. So everything else, then, like when you have everything to do in Zagreb, this is the 8th thing to do. Only 3 months. What we have in the pipeline is more focus on, it's more focused. We want to do more stuff connected to climate change because, well, that's the biggest problem of our times. And if we don't do anything, we can have museums and homeless people and whatever, but we'll be dead. So there's no point. So we will focus on more climate and plastic-related issues, and we'll also spread definitely in Austria and maybe in Bulgaria to have the Balkan stuff complete. So that's us. And now I can respond here. So what, how much time do I have? 2 minutes, okay, quickly. I think social entrepreneurs are primarily entrepreneurs. I don't think we need some special help. I think, like all people, all entrepreneurs, we just want, problems to disappear. So for state to get out of the way, that we don't have to pay idiotic taxes and fees for stuff that we don't use, that things that we do pay are transparent. So we are kind of laissez-faire. I think I'm laissez-faire when it comes to that, to social entrepreneurs. Of course, I'm not laissez-faire when it comes to entrepreneurs in general, because that creates a lot of problems. But when it comes to social entrepreneurs, don't give us support, just let us work. Also, I think social entrepreneurs should be very good at what they're doing. I don't think we need support. I don't think we should stress the social part. The social part will be obvious, but if we are very good at what we are doing, then we will attract people, and more people will want to become like us. Think of Tesla. You know, it's not about creating a usable car. It's creating the best car, the fastest car, and then people will aspire to it. And then you will get money, you will get support, you will get customers, you will get everything. So I think this is the model that we should take as social entrepreneurs and not look for handouts. And when we come to handouts, I don't really know ESF funding in Croatia, social entrepreneurs. I don't know social entrepreneurs receiving really money. I know everybody's struggling and barely surviving, but that's, I think, because of the general economic situation in Croatia and in the region. What we need is for state to get out the way first, and second, for us to create an ecosystem where we support each other. So if I'm buying stuff for the conference, I will buy it from social entrepreneurs. If I'm, if I want some service that there is a social entrepreneur and an entrepreneur, I will prefer social entrepreneur. But not because they're social, but because they're really good. That's it.
Thank you very much, Marco. And I'm looking for audience. You have a question? Go.
Is it on? Okay, it takes a while. Interesting perspectives. I think also one has to broaden the perspective of social entrepreneurship, because the goal isn't always to make profit, right? Our organization is a volunteer organization. We make no profit. We evaluate, and our resources and what we do is peer support with people with lived experience, and that's not something you can make profit of in the world of cooperation, and that's very important to realize. So we can't just take all social entrepreneurships and make it all about profit and because that doesn't work. Because one of the coolest things with social entrepreneurship, I think, is how we solve things that the market can't solve even. Not only the government, but also the market. We're in between.
Yeah, absolutely, I agree. I mean, I didn't stress it here. It's not about profit. Being good is not about earning money. So how we look at every project or at every client is 1/3 of consideration should be, does this make us sustainable? Second, does this build our organization? Will we learn something from it? Will we get more clients? You know, and then the third thing is like, does this create impact? So this is how we take clients, and we really, in the third year, we are fortunately refusing clients because they don't fit these three issues. But it's not about profit. We are not making profit. We are reinvesting a lot of money, and it's not about it, but it's about also impact, building organization, and so.
Okay. Can I just comment on something else as well? Because I think it's really important with the networks you talk about in Balkan, and it's so nice to hear about your connections, and you're laughing about it, and I recognize that with the Nordic countries as well. We don't have the recent war histories, but we always have our fights. You know, the Danish, I don't know where they are right now, but yes, I know where you are. But what we see is when we create these networks, and it's very also important for NGOs to establish of course, sustainable networks and coordinated networks. And this is really important to make an effective advocacy in our own countries, especially if we have a history, because we can go to Sweden and say, hey, Denmark, look at these statistics, look at these values, because we know our politicians are going to be, Denmark, God damn it, what do we need to do? So use that network. We use it very efficiently in the Nordic cooperations, and we also have something called, which is a privilege to have a Nordic Welfare Center, which involves a lot of researchers that do research on our welfare states, because we have similar states and similar culture, right?
Okay, thank you, Adam, for your comment. I'm just, taking my eyes on the time. Do we have one more question from Bulgarian audience? I see your hand. Yeah. Rasmus, do you have... Okay.
Hello, my name is Katrina.
and clear, their message is clear, and we cannot do it for ourselves. It's like, it's bad. But what we are now realizing that we will have many sub-brands. So we have Invisible Zagreb, Image of War, we have Papa Plastica, we have like many, Crowdfunding Academy. We have different brands under our umbrella. And that's how hopefully we will solve this problem. Because our point was that we want to start different, we want to be incubator in ourselves. We want to incubate ideas. So my colleague started Invisible Zagreb. He's like 26 and he was like, I want to do this. Okay, do it. We'll give you support. We'll pay your salary for, I don't know, 6 months until you develop it. And then, you know, it should bring return. It should make impact. It should increase the organization, improve the organization. And that's exactly what happened. So we believed in this. It happened. So, yeah, I think you can either go deep or you can go broad. I think it's good to have a combination of all. I mean, depends on your people, depends on your situation, depends on, well, a business model.
Okay, thank you very much, Marco. And I'd like to make a turn to our wonderful table because here we have two intermediate organizations from Serbia and Bosnia and Herzegovina. And we have Ernst Bank representative who I know support both of these organizations. And so that's very interesting experience when we have at the same table recipients and a donor or investor. I don't know how better to partners at the same table. And sorry, Erasmus, I saw your raising hand, but maybe next question. Okay. Well, and so let me introduce to you Neven Marinovic, Executive Director of Smart Collective from Serbia.
Okay, thank you. I have to object to facilitation because, you know, first you started with Jelena, everybody cries themselves out, you know, and now we have to speak our dull stories about what we do. I think it's... but yeah, second, I just realized that I did prepare a presentation but forgot to send it, so apologies for that. So I'll try to amuse you, you know, just by trying to explain what we actually do. So as you heard, my name is Neven Marinovic and I come from Belgrade, and where I co-founded with some friends and partners 15 years ago, organization named Smart Collective. So, of course, at first it wasn't like a full-time job. You know, it was something that we all had some other things that we were doing, but in the meantime, it turned into a full-time job. So today we have, I think, around 16 employees, and what we actually do is that we, on one hand, we work with classic for-profits and corporates. So we work with big companies that are active in Serbia, such as Erste Bank. And together with them, we have co-founded something called the Responsible Business Forum. So today we have a network of 30 plus companies that are active in that forum. And through this forum, we, I would say, stimulate, promote, and engage companies and develop the culture of corporate social responsibility in Serbia, and do many, you know, different things and projects where we engage companies to do something in the communities, where we mainstream corporate social responsibility, where we do events, analysis, and also, but that is something I cannot discuss sober, I need something stronger. We also do policy work, so we engage with the government on different issues. So recently, together with the Prime Minister's office, we have been able to establish a council on corporate social responsibility and philanthropy, through which we will, you know, try to address certain, I would say, flaws within the governmental policies when it comes to these things, social entrepreneurship included. So we can speak more about that, but I think the other part is probably more interesting for this audience from the Balkans. So yeah, I think, you know, just an anecdote, definitely I think Bulgaria is on the Balkans, but I think these terms were coined, I would say, in a political way, you know. So if you know, and even if you would ask Croats, you know, they're not in the Balkans sometimes. So they created the Western Balkans plus Croatia. Now it's Western Balkans plus Turkey, you know. And if you would ask the Greeks, it's called the Balkan Peninsula, but they would also say, no, we're not, you know, we're Hellenic, so we're not from the Balkans. So it's, you know, it's a tricky story. So you know, put Croats, Serbs, and Bosnians in a room, what can go wrong, you know? So yeah, and then the Bulgarians walk in. It's the beginning of a joke, yeah. So what I wanted to say is that we are also very focused on developing, I would say, impact economy, whether you call it social entrepreneurship or you call it, you know, entrepreneurship with a positive impact. So on that hand, I think, you know, we have started doing it not because, you know, we said, wow, social entrepreneurship is great, let's do something about it, but, you know, because gradually and slowly we have ran into different initiatives and understood that, you know, maybe there is a better, different, and more sustainable way to solve and to tackle different problems. And by working with business, we also understood that, you know, business maybe can play a more positive, you know, role in the society, being, you know, such a powerful force and having so many capacities. So to cut the long story short, today we like to think that we act in the most important areas that are of relevance for social entrepreneurship development. So we provide funding, we provide technical support, we provide awareness raising and promotion of social enterprises, and finally, but not least important, access to market. At the end of the day, we also combine the two programs. So if on one hand we have, I don't have a presentation, so this is the most visual thing you will see from me, so pay attention. So if on one hand we have the businesses, on the other hand we have the classic non-profits, so we push them, you know, both, so that businesses become more social and the non-profits become more, in a way, business-minded, you know. So I hope you remind this. How do we do that? So we do it, and I think this is a very important word, we do it with partners, we do it with many other stakeholders, and I think this is, for me, you know, it's not about boundaries, defining whether somebody is a social entrepreneur, a non-profit, you know, for me it's more about, you know, if there is a sustainable model, you know, what is the impact, if there is, you know, a business model around it. So sometimes these people call themselves differently, but at the end of the day, you know, have a same, in a way, way of doing things. And also, we, when I say combine the things, we also rely heavily on our partners from the business sector. So we have a pro bono program where people from companies actually commit their time, energy, and skills to support social entrepreneurs. We work with companies to basically pitch them the social entrepreneurs that can somehow enter their supply chain or their value chain, and, you know, work with them as partners. And last but not least, you know, we work with wonderful partners such as Erste Bank in basically facilitating their specific tailor-made products to social entrepreneurs and helping them, you know, to get loans and then to support them in spending the money, in a way. We have, I think, envisaged, or not envisaged, but, you know, we have, these are the things that I think we should be focusing, not only in the Balkans, but also elsewhere, but I think in Balkans more, and these are, when it comes to social entrepreneurship, I think this would be lack of skills when it comes to running a business, and I think this lack of skills is not only when it comes to social entrepreneurs, it's also in the non-profits, but it's elsewhere, you know. So I think entrepreneurial culture and business culture in that sense is not something that has, you know, been very rooted into the Eastern Europe and the Balkans countries, you know. And I often say, speaking at conferences abroad, you know, it's one of those things you really wouldn't like to see your daughter marry an entrepreneur, you know. This is that kind of, you know, like, so that's something like, when is he going to get a real job, you know, like. So I think, you know, entrepreneurship is not being praised. It's not something, you know, you're proud of. It's really something people don't understand. They think it's, you know, you do it because of money. And then when you come with social entrepreneurship, then people even say, well, they're even more skeptical. So, you're there to make money, but you're doing good. Yeah. Like I was born yesterday, So I think, we have a long way to go. So that would be my first point, explaining and raising awareness about social entrepreneurship. Why is it great? Why is it good? And, how it works. Second would be access to finance. So there is money available, but there is not always the type of money available for the social entrepreneurs. And this is why next year we will be launching, together with some other partners, our first impact investment fund. We have raised and are close to raising around 600,000 euros that we will be able to invest in social enterprises in the way that they need it, and to basically bridge that gap that exists. So you can get I think a grant of, let's say, 15, 20, 25,000. You can go outside and get 200,000, but, or not, or just say, no, I don't need that. I'm good. But, we think that in this region, you're basically not able to, get anything in between. So that's why we want to invest in the enterprises, around 50, 60,000 per enterprise that would make them, investable or already, for more, basically scalable at the end of the day. I think so access to finance, access to market, and I think also one of the things that we need to keep in mind is that, and I say it from a different perspective. So on the other hand, I'm also having another kind of hat. I'm the president of Euclid Network, which is a network based in London. So guess what? In March we are moving from London to Netherlands because of Brexit. But basically, this is a network of different intermediate organizations and social enterprise network in Europe. And I say it because it's not only a Balkan thing, So everybody talks about innovation and about social innovation. And I say something provocative, but I think, not everybody needs to innovate for the sake of innovation. And I think we need more application. We need to see what works, and we need to do it properly. Not everybody needs to be the Elon Musks and, whoever are the people we are looking into. And I think, that sometimes, it's driven also by the donor community. It's driven by the investors, Explain to us how a project will be innovative, in not more than 200 words or whatever. But I think it's we also need to understand that sometimes we need to do things that we do, and innovation not necessarily comes by doing new things. Sometimes it comes because you do all things in a new way, or you include some new partners or stakeholders. And how much time do I have? 1 minute? Okay. So, so basically, I think, these would be the lessons that, that for me, some key messages would be that, innovation is not per se something you need to have, that there is money, but, we need to make it more, I would say, tailor-made and more available and tailor-made to our needs. And definitely partnership, whether is it cross boundaries or is it cross sectors, but I think I truly believe that this is the only way we can basically grow this sector further. So thanks.
Thank you very much, Neven. Do you have your comments or questions? Not you, but Erasmus. He was the first one from the previous.
Yeah, I have a question regarding businesses, because I think when we speak of businesses, it's like it's one big entity, that it's very homogeneous. Actually, I don't think there are. I mean, here in Bulgaria, it's my impression that most companies are very big. In Denmark, it's very opposite. We have a few big ones, but most of them are actually small or middle-sized. But if you, as an NGO, approach the bigger companies, you're usually too small for them to be interesting for you. Or for them. And if you go to the small ones, they don't have money to invest in social entrepreneurs. So we have somehow to find those companies that are relevant, and maybe to develop a tool for that or some guidelines in order to figure out what companies are actually relevant. I don't know if you have any good elaborations on that. Thank you.
You're completely right. It's not the one entity. It's completely different, and I think it's not one size fits all. I think for me, one of the crucial moments was when I was talking to like a very, I would say, rich Serbian entrepreneur slash tycoon, a couple of years ago. And then he told me one thing, which was in a way, for me, interesting. He said that, everybody comes to me and everybody asks me for money, but nobody ever asks me for advice. So how did I do it? What's the secret of success? I mean, should I do this or that? And then, it made me thinking that basically, we do the same. We approach them asking for money. So we come to the people who are already knowledgeable and successful and tell them, well, give us your money because we know how to do things in a way better than you would, And this is the same thing that the government also tells them, give us your money and we'll just do things, And, in a way, I think, that makes them feel alienated, and so this is how we have come up with this concept of basically, pro bono and mentoring and all these things where, people are, I would say, more open to do, to come, to give you advice, to do a lecture, to, do something else. And then you would connect, then they would understand what you do, and then they would be more open to give you money. It's the same with SMEs, so even more, because with smaller companies, they have less money, but their experience would be more relevant for social entrepreneurs. And at the end of the day, the decision-making process is much shorter. So if you talk to the boss, he makes a decision. It's not like, corporate affairs, the headquarters, whoever. So I think we need to do much better our homework and to see how to, for example, we do with a project with the biggest retail chain in Serbia, where they basically, it's an academy, it's a retail academy where we get the social entrepreneurs who have the potential, to enter their, retail chains, and basically they would train them and help them to get, or help some understand that it's not for them, So I think, there are different ways of how we can work and combine forces with companies, and what we, in most of the cases, do is we go and ask for money.
Thank you. And we're supposed to be 10 minutes late. Is it okay for you? Because we started later. Is it okay? Okay, yes? So one more question, please.
Hello. My name is Lena. Again, so a lot of Lenas today.
I think, and this goes for everybody, you can call yourselves whatever you want, And I think that's the first thing. Second, I think, it's of course, it's a thinner line, but I truly believe that entrepreneurs and social entrepreneurs are everywhere, So I would say that Mirjana is a social, they would call her now social entrepreneur, because she's within the system, within a big system, trying to move things forward, trying to change things, trying to, work with us in a different way. So I think, if there is a clear, I would say, business model, not necessarily if you're sustainable at the moment or not, but if you're doing things in an innovative way, not necessarily you need to generate, a profit at this point. But, I think if you are, you would be able to call yourself a social entrepreneur, because don't let others define you, because I will give you an example. Right now, we have a new legislation coming in Serbia around social entrepreneurship, and believe me, you don't want, the state to define, who should be called social entrepreneur or not, But that's, as I said, it requires more rakia to discuss that.
Yeah, I just want to answer also. So we have a company, like a normal company, registered, because social entrepreneurship doesn't really exist in Croatia, and we have a non-profit. And then we are like juggling. I mean, yeah. So we have to juggle, because if something is not defined, like, you don't care. And then now recently there was some call that they give out money to social entrepreneurs. And we were like, yeah, okay, we'll get this money finally, something. But then it turns out that the only way to get money is that if non-profit founded the company. That's the only social entrepreneurship they recognize. So, screw that.
But according to EU definition, you fall under the social entrepreneurship, and it's the matter of interpretation in every country and by different donors.
Okay, thank you very much. And let me introduce to you and give the floor Vladimir Maric. He's Impact Incubator Director, Mosaic Foundation from Bosnia and Herzegovina.
Good afternoon. Thank you all for giving me the opportunity to participate here today. I want to tell you a couple of stories from Bosnia and Herzegovina. It's a small country in the Balkans, famous for many, let's say, bad things, but I want to give you some really good examples and a really nice story that's coming from there. Some of you might have heard of Mosaic Foundation. It was established 16 years ago in Bosnia and Herzegovina by one man. Over these years, Mosaic Foundation was trying to find as to how it can best contribute to building an impact society which is built of young, responsible people who are very value-oriented and value-based. And it's taken us a long time. Our biggest project was the Youth Bank, which is helping young people set up socially aware projects around the small municipalities around the country. But over time, we realized that we needed to do something with entrepreneurship. And 4 years ago, Mosaic Foundation sat down with Deloitte, the American Deloitte consulting company, to work out a 10-year strategy for Mosaic, which will not be project-based. It will actually be a strategy that Mosaic will follow for 10 years without going off the rail tracks whatsoever for none of the reasons. And it was the best decision we've actually ever made, because once we built this strategy, which is, I will tell you about it in a second, we have never ever after that returned to project-based work. This is a 10-year mission we want to achieve, and we are very stubborn and we really want to make it. We have, in the meantime, even declined a lot of funding, talking of millions of euros which were offered in the country. We have declined it for the reason of achieving our strategy. And let me tell you a little bit about the strategy. So we want to be the leading impact investor in the region, not just in Bosnia and Herzegovina, because we want to expand, which will identify, so we want to find the young people, we want to empower them, so we want to give them the tools to do what young entrepreneurs, social entrepreneurs should do, and also to invest in them. And These people need to be value-driven, so they need to run their young startups with a certain set of values, which we've also defined, and they also need to be innovative. And these are social entrepreneurs which are really hard to find. You probably know that in many countries you either have a very well developed value system, but you're not a good entrepreneur, or the other way around. And we've found ways to work with that as well. Our 10-year strategy until 2026, we want to have 50,000 people who have taken part in our activities, educating them about what social entrepreneurship is. And this is every fourth young person in the country. When I say young person, young people, these are people from 17 to 35. We want to have 5,000 projects, short-term projects, which are only doing socially good. So these are not entrepreneurial projects. These are things like redecorating your local hospital waiting room, creating a playground for kids, and so on. Creating projects which actually bring value to the society, but you don't get anything else out of it. So you don't have any financial benefit from it. The idea here is that we want to identify the people who have a developed set of values that they want to do good for the society without getting anything in return. And then among these people, we want to find 500 entrepreneurs who will actually start up a social business. And by 2026, we want to be 100% self-sustainable, so that our core funding for the Mosaic Foundation, which currently employs 20 people, should be fully self-sustainable from the money or the profit that's coming in from the social enterprises that we've just set up. At the moment, we work with a wide set of supporters and partners. I'll just mention a few. We have 32 cities, towns, and municipalities that have an agreement with Mosaic Foundation to co-finance everything that we do with our young entrepreneurs. We also have 8 foundations. These are worldwide famous foundations that help us with building the Mosaic Fund 1. Mosaic Fund 1 is the Impact Fund 1 of Mosaic Foundation, which only this year invested 350,000 euros in young entrepreneurs in Bosnia and Herzegovina. We have 6 large corporations that are working with us as our very close partners, and I'll show you an examples what they do with us. And we have 4 development agencies. These are agencies of foreign governments which work in Bosnia and Herzegovina. They have their own agendas, but they've found their part within the Mosaic strategy, and they're really helping us to raise the awareness and also to work with young entrepreneurs. What I want to talk about today, and it's the topic of, in general, of the panel, so it's actually building a partnership with all of these people and all of these agencies I've just mentioned. We, as an investor, we have the impact startup in the middle. We offer the impact startup through Mosaic Fund 1. We offer them the capital they need to set up their own business, but we also offer them money, which is a grant for helping them do a kind of a test of their business. It's prototyping, basically testing the idea in the market before they get into the entrepreneurship. The worst thing we could do is invest into a business that we know is going to fail 100%, 1-2 years down the line. So we provide for them the capital, and we also provide for them the mentors. Currently, we have 22 mentors in our pool, which are helping these young entrepreneurs to test their ideas. And if the test proves okay, then we move on to the next step, which is registering their own social startup. Besides this, we work very closely with the NGO sector. I'll show you a very good example after this. The NGO sector also brings in a lot of value when we are talking about the social part of the enterprise that we are working on. We have the real sector. Again, I will mention them later. We are working with retailers, with large brands that are coming from abroad, who are helping us to shape the young entrepreneurs into real businessmen. We have development funds, which are coming from all different sorts, course, we have some European development funds. We also have funds coming from abroad, from different continents and so on. And the banks as well, which obviously form a really important part for the young entrepreneurs to get used to basically to capitalism and the way the system functions. I will tell you first the story of Greens, which is one of our social enterprises. ProReha is an organization in Bosnia and Herzegovina which is helping people with special needs to get assimilated in the society once they complete their adolescent age, so at the age of 18. By law in Bosnia and Herzegovina, the state takes care of children with special needs or children who don't have parents until the age of 18. After that time, a huge change happens because they are asked to leave these state institutions and to find their way around the society. And this is where the problem actually starts, because they're usually not prepared to deal with the society as is. ProReha Association has organized a whole system which includes the living housing for these adolescents, and it also includes work. It provides employment for them, and what they've decided on primarily is that they want to produce herbs in their greenhouses just outside these living units. So they approached, sure. Oh, right. Okay. They approached Mosaic Foundation with an idea to produce microgreens. I don't know if anybody knows what microgreens are. These are the vegetables that provide the really nutritious vitamins and minerals in many bigger quantities than the ordinary vegetables. In December 2017, we started the prototyping phase with them. 6 months later, the mentors were working with them on shaping their business, the brand, and everything that they need to do to become real entrepreneurs. In July 2018, Mosaic invested 7,500 euros in registering a social business. This social business started listing its products via the retailers that are our partners, Mercator especially, which is the second biggest retail chain in the country. And soon after, they've started visiting the premium restaurants, which are also our partners, to actually get their herbs into these restaurants' menus. Very soon, they became the stars of a campaign by Local, which was organized by Mercator, and soon they were selling 500 units monthly, which at a price of €3 is quite a nice income for them. Very soon they realized that they couldn't actually operate anymore with such a small capacity, so they've applied to another one of our partners, which is EFSE. It's the European Fund for Southeast Europe, who have awarded them now the 10,000 euros for capacity increase. I will show you one more example. It's very quick. Two young entrepreneurs approached Mosaic 2 years ago, and they wanted to build a toy for kids who were spending too much time in front of digital screens. And they've built a toy which actually requires human interaction. You cannot use it unless you have your parents working with you. And it's actually for learning letters, numbers, colors, shapes, geometrical shapes, and mathematical functions. And this company spent also a lot of time working with mentors to build a brand, and very soon Unicredit Bank decided also to support them through their activities. The Mosaic Foundation invested 7,500 euros in capital in 2017, and the toy was slowly becoming the major tool for teachers in schools and in kindergartens. I just have 2 more sentences. So. Soon they were in 37 stores, and only 3 months later they've added another 10 stores through Drogerie Markt, which is another one of our partners. Very soon they realized that they will not be able to finance development of new products unless they had some extra cash coming from the side. And then we partnered with Sparkasse, which is Erste Bank in other countries, to provide a loan for them just to print the first 2,000 pieces of their next product, which they've already pre-sold.
Thank you, Vladimir. So first of all, thank you for 2 amazing examples that you just provided. And I shall tell you that we have almost the same project in Bulgaria this year. I just had an interview with them 2 weeks ago. And so if you would make just some final comments, and I'd suggest to go right away to your partner, because you mentioned already Ernst Bank, and then the audience would have an opportunity to ask both of you questions. Okay?
Sure, I'll just say very briefly how we actually came to this partnership. Mosaic also at one point decided to build an online community of young entrepreneurs. It currently has 9,000 members. It includes entrepreneurs, mentors, people who are working in schools, universities, professors, people who started a business and they failed. And it's a place for you to share your blogs, to share your questions and answers. As a young entrepreneur, you can get a first-hand experience of what is it like to set up a business. But also here you can apply for funding from Mosaic Foundation, Mosaic Fund 1, and also get support from the banks. And Mosaic is currently preparing Mosaic Fund 2, which will have around 12 million euros. It will be based in Brussels, and hopefully beginning of next year we'll be able to provide what Neven was saying, this missing part of the puzzle where these startups need an acceleration money to sort of move out to the new markets. No, only in the countries which are, yeah, there is a couple of countries from EU as well, including Croatia and Slovenia and Poland, but it's mainly countries based down in Balkans.
Balkans including Bulgaria?
Yes.
Yes, including Bulgaria. That's very impressive.
Thank you.
Very impressive. Thank you so much. And I'm especially proud because I see your hand, but we will ask question after the second presentation because it's very logically. It's probably first time in my life when we have partners in one table. So let's give floor to Mariana Shakic, Social Bank in Erste Bank, Austria.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for the invitation. It's really a pleasure to sit in this kind of environment. And you can see my strategy. Actually, I accept invitation where I have all the partners. So they say all what we are doing, and I'm just sitting. And actually, I'm not joking with this, but this is the best recommendation and the best PR that your business partner can get from your partner from the social sector. And try to remember this next time you also discuss with the businesses how you can actually work together. Let me just briefly go through my presentation. My name is Mirjana Šakić. I was born in Yugoslavia. Since then I lived in like one country, but it was like 4 countries if I'm counting properly. But since last 5 years, I'm living in Vienna, in Austria, still dealing with our region, and that's the reason why I'm here. As you can see, I'm working in a department called social banking, which might sound strange, like banking, social, doesn't fit very well together, but there is a logic. I will tell you very briefly what do we see as a social banking. We are talking about the region of Western Balkans, but the region much a bit wider is the region of Central and Eastern Europe, where we believe that we live in a prosperous, rich, enabling, empowering region. But as you can see, there are many, many real problems. Nevertheless, that all the countries from these regions are EU member states. As you can see, the situation in Romania, where every second citizen doesn't have an access to a proper bathroom, or the case in Serbia, where half of the people do not have enough money to cover their monthly bills. So we as a bank, this was our way of thinking. What is the situation in our markets, and where is this area where we as a business can really influence or help change to happen? And as you know, we are a bank. So what we are doing, we are providing business banking services, loans, and different banking products. And when you take a look at our region, this is actually how the region looks. You have 6 million unemployed or inactive, economically inactive people. You have more than 4 million retired people. Our region is getting old. This is also a fact. But
even though we have more than 5 million people who are close to the line of risk of poverty being employed, unfortunately, 7 out of 10 do not see any kind of progress in their income. So this is actually the situation, how the region looks like. And we were thinking what we can do and actually where is our role. And we thought that the most logical thing is that we do our best to decrease this financial exclusion for the groups who need banking services, or banking services can help them not endanger their life or businesses, but really help them to grow, to expand, to have this impact even more visible and achievable. And the fact was, at that time, and we started with this initiative in 2015, officially, but even before that, unofficially, let's call it this way. When I say officially, I mean that there was a strong impetus coming from the management board, particularly CEO of Erste Group. So when you are talking with businesses and you are thinking how to somehow involve them into your topics, please have in mind that the impact investing, it is not even a CFO topic, it's a CEO topic. So unless there is a very good understanding of the management of the company, why achieving impact is important for the company, your results will be limited, let's call it this way. So this is how we started. There was a strong impetus. We grabbed it, and we wanted to see what is happening in the region. In the whole region, not only Balkans, I'm talking about Central and Eastern Europe, Hungary, Czech Republic, Slovakia, Romania. Unfortunately, we do not have businesses in Bulgaria, but I bet that the probably situation in Bulgaria would be the same. If you're a young person, or not even a young, but you just want to start some small businesses, to have a small workshop, a small store, none of the banks was willing to finance you. And this was an area where we as a business, through our core business, had a clear role to play, responsibility and the role. So this is how we assessed our first, we call it segment. We call them starting entrepreneurs, whether they have clear social impact and they like to be seen, presented as social businesses, social entrepreneurs, or they're just regular micro business running maybe in some rural areas, employing people who would otherwise have no access to the job market, to any kind of an employment. And with this job creation, they do perform very visible social impact in their communities. So I would definitely agree that we as a bank also do not see these clear boundaries. Who is a social entrepreneur? Who is a social business? Who is like a regular or normal? What does this mean that social is unnormal? So that's why I also do not like to use these definitions, especially in the Western Balkans where words are very dangerous. Nevertheless, this was our first offer. As you can see, this offer is now active in all of these countries, and this is actually what we are doing. We understood that access to finance is not enough. Nevertheless, that very often we heard, you just give me the money and all my problems are solved. Unfortunately, the reality shows that once you get the money, then the trouble starts. And that's why we understood that it's not enough just to offer some kind of a loan or a bank product, even if the conditions are really tailor-made for these companies. But we understood that this requires non-financial support and ongoing mentoring, especially after receiving finances. And as you can see, I'm also sharing with you some of the first figures. From a banking point of view, these are not impressive figures, but for me personally, to know that with this program we managed to provide and to enable these businesses to create almost 5,000 new jobs in our region, this makes me really, really happy and proud.
we mentioned a lot why we need to raise awareness, why we need to talk about these business endeavors, why we need to see the faces of these people. And this is one of the additional things that we do very regularly. We share all the client stories. We invest into the stories of these entrepreneurs, of these NGOs, of these social businesses. And you can find, we use our social media, our marketing budgets, these opportunities that we have as a big bank, also to tell people at a conference like this also. This is the face of Silvia from Croatia, who just started a small business producing, as you can see, clothing and stuff for the babies using bamboo, employing women 50 plus, who actually lost their jobs in Croatia due to the fact that the textile industry in Croatia was also heavily hit, and the majority of the employees in these industries are women 50 plus. Very fast. This is our second segment, and we discussed this already a lot. We, as a bank, see social organizations, NGOs, who are providing social services, different kind of support services for numerous groups or individuals. We believe that they perform extremely important work for our communities. Most of these topics are not even tackled any longer by the government, by the relevant ministries, or by the state. Have in mind that we are talking about the countries who used to have state support for most of the things. When I was a little, the only thing that my parents told me, you just finish your school, the state will take care of everything. Unfortunately, or luckily, I don't know, depends how you look at it, this doesn't exist any longer, but we still have this heresy that somebody will take care of me, somebody will create, and this is the fact. There should be a safety net organized by the state, but due to the fact that we are talking about the region where we are, unfortunately, this safety net does not exist. So for us as a bank, the activities of NGOs who are developing their business model based on non-for-profit activities, most of their activities are funded through the donor money, through some kind of a projects. And for us as a bank, we understand this business. We do not believe that every social initiative, every social business should be scaled up, profitable, driven into the, let's say, mainstream business terminology or whatever. We believe that there is a difference, and we as a bank, we must find out what are the differences. This is why we are learning a lot. This is why we cannot do this alone. And also, I will just come back to the non-financial support. These guys here are actually our partners for non-financial support. Just like, I think this year in Bosnia, we started a pilot, a small pilot, where we searched for the partner, and we found out that Mosaic is actually doing what we need. So when you're looking for the partners, please do not replicate and do not start the activity that somebody else is doing. If I'm a bank, I'm doing my job the best, but they are providing knowledge, they are providing capacity building for NGOs, so it's logical that we support these organizations because they're already doing this job. So this was our strategy when we are talking about strategy. Again, some very nice figures, as you can see, and please have in mind, we are talking, when I say finance clients, we do not put our CSR funds into this. So the bank anyway is providing grants, CSR support, corporate volunteering, all this, let's say, mandatory things by the CSR departments. We are talking here about real business. This is our core business. And it's very important that your business partner embeds this partnership into their core business, because otherwise it's just going to be a project for your business partner as well. And as you can see, almost 400 NGOs, non-for-profits. These are community shelters, many initiatives, as you guys are actually doing, and there is a business model for this as well. This is, for example, our client from Hungary. They're providing accommodation, but also work and physical and mental rehabilitation and support for the disabled people in Hungary. Please check our website, or you can just put into YouTube as the group. You will find a lot of nice stories, also from Serbia, Croatia, and others. And last but not the least, individuals. Again, we are talking, I just show you the picture of our region. There are many people who are suffering from either like bad circumstances in their life or some bad decisions when it comes to finances. And for these people, again, we are providing a lot of education, a lot of financial literacy. For the businesses, when we are talking for the startup entrepreneurs and also for the NGOs, we are providing a lot of business training in terms of how do you write your business plan, why it's important to understand also how the business should function, especially when you're going to your partner bank. This is one of the projects and the programs that we are currently developing in Slovakia, hoping to replicate it, and I'm coming to the cross-border cooperation. The strength that we have also and the added value that we have as a banking group is that we can actually transfer the knowledge, but mistakes also from one market to another. And this is something that we are doing a lot. Just a very interesting case that is currently only in Austria. We have a Zweite Sparkasse in German. This is like a second saving house. Erste Sparkasse, it's like the first saving house. Zweite Sparkasse, it's a unique bank in the world. I'm not aware of a similar one. We are providing actually banking services for people who are going through personal debt. For these clients, actually the banks prior to the basic account, which was adopted just last year, but before this, if you lose a job or if you go through a personal bankruptcy, you would not have access to a bank account. And in Austria, if you don't have an access to a bank account, you can't live. You can't rent apartment, you can't pay your bills, there's nothing that you can do. So this was, again, you can see with our projects, we are starting from a need. And this bank is actually run by volunteers. We have 8 branches all over Austria. One is of course in Vienna, and more than 300 employees are working in this bank. We also have a microfinance institution in Romania, providing financing for the mainly rural, small producers who otherwise would not be served by any bank. A lot of client stories, exactly, and I'm finishing. Please think of an impact that you want to achieve. And this is something that I also want to relate with Vladimir. It's very important that you know where you want to be. This is where we want to be. Doesn't matter if we are going to achieve it, but it's good that you know this is where I want to be. And we also need your help for this, because this is not our journey, this is our journey. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mirena, for your impressive and I hope inspiring presentation. I feel like audience has a lot of jealousy that there is no Ernste Bank with this excellent program in Bulgaria. I don't know, maybe some future plans?
Yeah. The great thing is that, for example, in 2011, we, together with our partners, made a tour with Professor Muhammad Yunus. We heard about him yesterday. This was 2011. So at that time, nobody, Neven and Zoran was there also, in the Balkan region, nobody understood social enterprise. What is this? And having in mind that we have this socialistic terminology still present in our region, this was a nightmare. You know, it took us a lot of time, a lot of efforts to really explain to people what is social business, who are social entrepreneurs. And this was in 2011. You know, in 2015, we started with this project. In 2017, we already had the product in the bank. EIF guarantee was there. So it's a good momentum. Things are developing really fast, and I'm really optimistic for the future. I'm sure that in 3 years, if we meet here again, this would be a totally different setup. And in 5 years, we will talk about impact investing, about sustainable finances, about climate, as you said. This will be the topic. And this is actually what I hope for, but I'm also certain and convinced that this will be our future.
Thank you very much. And if Yuri allowed me to ask, because I saw two hands, only two questions. Yes, I know. Oh, wow. Okay, but that was, so you first. The lady, she was going to ask first.
Marina Kisyova. Marina, we work to empower girls and women living outside of Sofia. My question is to Vladimir Maric. Have you supported social entrepreneurs that address the issue of radicalization? Thank you.
Sorry, what was the...
in Bosnia and Herzegovina, the issue of countering violent extremism and radicalization.
No, we haven't. We have 13 registered social businesses, but none of our activities involved what you just mentioned. So no.
Just a quick question of clarification to Vladimir again. First of all, thank you for this panel, and congratulations to your graphic designer of Mosaic. Quick question of clarification. Do you expect, so you look at your investment as a real investment, do you expect any financial returns? Do you have shares in these businesses?
Yes.
And if yes, can you just give some more details?
So depending on what the entrepreneur brought into the business, we actually have a share going up to we have a share up to 49% from business to business. We have two businesses where we have 100% share. These are businesses that we saw as a big need for all the businesses that were coming. One is a marketing agency, and one is a business which is providing access to market in retailers. So we have share in these businesses. Because they are social businesses, we expect them to invest 51% of their profit at the end of the year after investment. So whatever is left after investment, reinvestment, to put it back into the local community, and we give up on this profit for the first 8 to 10 years. So for as long as our strategy lasts, we don't expect to take this profit on. We will give up on our part. It gives the business the time to actually adjust and to sort of reinvest into a really sustainable business. After this, we expect to take our part of the profit and to actually be self-sustainable, like I just mentioned, in 2026.
Okay, I know that you guys have more questions, but we really don't have time. No. And it was, at least for me, it was absolutely interesting question. And now Maria has some comments. So could you please share your conclusion and comment?
Yes.
No.
Yes, I'm sorry to be such a bad timekeeper, but I got very into all the stories and examples. So I would like to invite all of you to approach our panelists after the panel, ask all your questions. As you can see, they like to talk. They will be willing to talk to you. So just approach them, and I think Yuri will invite you for coffee if we left any time for it.
But
thank you very much. Thank you.
I'm not inviting for coffee because we don't have time for coffee. But do you need, I have some remarks, but do you need Tatiana to make some conclusion, or because we don't really have time for going through the panelists, because we have other things, and yeah, but if you have to conclude.
Look, I would like to keep it open, because there was an open discussion, and if you have some comments, please go, and then, yep. No comments.
No, I have comments. I say no to Miriam. Sorry. And could you please press your button, because otherwise it's microphone. Okay, so it was very inspiring. But I'm afraid that we have other things. Sorry, I will be timekeeper. And few things to say. One is technical. we will make now a very short break without coffee. We didn't provide coffee just not to disturb you. So just coffee for smokers or toilet, yes, or for toilet, because then we have one more representative of the Balkans. I'm not sure Slovenia, is it in the Balkan or not? Anyway, but Slovenia, we have a great example from a winner from this social innovation competition. So it will be very interesting, and I really hope speak with the panelists, but please go to toilet or to smoke, and then return to hear this a very interesting presentation. That's one thing, and the second thing is it's kind of the joke, but there are so many topics that we open. Unfortunately, we didn't have time to conclude. However, I'm absolutely sure in one thing. You could never have such a vivid discussion in Germany. So come to the Balkans in Bulgaria again to continue our discussion.